Hi there. Welcome to today's session of Every Mark Matters. We're having a look at Edexcel History Paper 2, the American West. What we are going to do is we're going to have a look at what is a really tricky question. And it's tricky not conceptually, it's tricky because the content of this question I think is quite difficult. But also lots of candidates really struggle to answer this question because it's very, very, very different to the other questions. So let's have a quick go at this one then. So this question is made up, just like the others, of three components. And that is the command phrase. This one, in essence, the command phrase for this question is write a narrative account. And what you need to do is you need to tell the story. Okay? And in essence, what I mean by that is you literally need to structure your answer as beginning, middle, and end. Okay? And what you're looking for here is you're looking for chronological order. Okay? So now we have a bit of an understanding of what the question is instructing us to do. Let's think about knowledge that will be relative for this. So let's focus on the knowledge that it wants us to use. And in this particular question, it's the ways in which the cattle industry grew within that year, within those years. Okay? So if we have a bit of a think here about how the cattle industry grew, so we need to consider what happens in 1865 and 1874 and the between years. So why don't you take the time now and think about the early development of the cattle industry and what impact or what events take place in this period. Okay? So press pause and I'll see you shortly. Right, okay. So there's loads of great knowledge here that takes place here. So let's do it all in chronological order then, shall we? So first and foremost, you can bring in the US Civil War. So that ends in 1865, and as we know, in the North, it's $40. Ooh, $40 for a cow. In the South, because of vast or massive overpopulation, it's $5. So in essence, what we know is we have something called the development of long drives, where cattle ranchers are paying cowboys to take people to go north. So you can refer to that. Or you could refer to the Goodnight Loving Trail. So instead of going north, what Goodnight and Loving do is they go west. Alright, and they sell cattle to the Navajo. I always misspell Navajo. Navajo. Navajo Indians. Alright? And they do that all the way up in Wyoming, and that is created by, or the Goodnight Loving Trail is created by Charles Goodnight and Oliver Loving. And they do that in 1866. Then, moving forward, in 1867, we have got Abilene, the creation of Abilene, the first cow town. Alright, this is created by Joseph McCoy. And this is a cow town that sits on the Transcontinental Railroad. So rather than taking cows on a long drive, what McCoy suggested, well, why don't you just come to me? Why don't you just take them all the way up to Abilene? You sell them on the train, or get them on the train and sell them in the markets you want to go to, rather than getting to walk there. All right, and obviously that leads to him becoming a massive millionaire with, I think it's 3 million, if I remember correctly, 3 million cattle. Being driven there by 1873. So a huge number of cattle being taken there. You also have John Iliffe. In 1870, he creates open range ranching. And you can't forget about the cheeky invention of barbed wire. But I've written barbed wire. Because that closes parts of the open range, and that leads to conflict, and that is created in 1874. You know, when we think about who's going to put up the barbed wire, it's going to be the homesteaders, because they don't want the cattle sort of, roaming onto their farms and eating the crops, do they? So they're going to put barbed wire to keep the cattle off their land. But also, that's going to lead to conflict, because the cattle are going to hurt themselves, and it's going to reduce the price of the cattle. All right, so there's a great example there, and of course you've got the prelude or the build-up to conflict between cattle ranchers and homesteaders. Okay, so we have an idea of what the question is instructing us to do. We know what knowledge is relevant for this question. Let's have a look at thinking about what Edexcel want us to do for this. And what they want us to do is they want us to create a narrative. So our second order concept is narrative or chronology. And chronology just means tell the story. All right, so you just want to put things in time order. So phrases you could use is this led to, or this is linked, or as a result. And I really want to stress to you that you need to create a motif for this question. In order to get 8 out of 8, you need to think about a motif, a theme that threads through the story. Okay? And if we're thinking about a motif, well, what is a motif? This theme that threads through our story. So what is a theme here? So it starts out really small and really, really cheap and really, really broke, basically. Then the goodnight loving become really popular and sell loads of cattle. If you're a business person, you're going to see the goodnight loving trail selling cattle to the Indians and see, oh yeah, that's just them, let them do it. Are we going to copy? No. So the industry is going to grow. Then Abilene comes along where you can sell cattle without them losing weight. So the industry again is going to grow. Then we have John Elliff with open range ranching. He becomes Denver's first millionaire. People are going to copy him. So again, the industry is going to grow. And then we have barbed wire, which creates conflict because the industry has grown so much. So I would say that our motif, if we think about all of the events that we've referred to, is we have a massive growth in profits. You know, they're not doing very good at the start of our story, but they certainly come out fairly on top at the end of our story. This question is an 8 marker. It's the only question type that breaks our rules of 1 paragraph for every 4 marks. You are going to do 3 paragraphs, and you're going to spend 15 minutes doing that. And paragraph 1 is beginning, paragraph 2 is the middle, paragraph 3 is the end. Okay? Right, let's have a quick look then at what the example, at the mark scheme. So we know what the question wants us to do. We know the knowledge that's relevant for it. We know what Edexcel want us to do. Let's have a look at the final element, and let's have a look at the mark scheme. What does it want us to do? So let's have a look at the success criteria. And this one, similar to other questions on this paper, is marked in AO1 and AO2. That's knowledge. And that's explanation. We are going for, now I always get this wrong, this paper is marked in level 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so this is level 2 and level 3. Alright, but it doesn't mean that you're getting a level 3. If you're achieving a level 3, it doesn't mean grade 3, it just means the quality of your answer. So what happens for level 1, for level 2 in AO1, what you need to do is you need to have 1 event or facts per paragraph. Okay? Level 3 is you need to have 2 events or facts per para. And again, these need to be as precise as possible. Okay, for level 2 explanation, you need to basically have a vague link. All right, it needs to be in time order. Your answer needs to be in time order. Okay, but you need to have vague links between events. And then for level 3 AO2, what you're doing here is you have got clear links and explanation between events. Most of the countries struggle here. And that's where we're going to succeed, just by constantly practicing. Okay, right, ladies and gents, you have got 15 minutes. Press pause, take the time to have a go at answering this question by writing a narrative account analysing the ways in which the cattle industry grew in the years 1865 to 1874. It's an 8-mark question. You're going to write down 3 paragraphs and have a go and spend 15 minutes doing it. Put all of your distractions away, set a 15-minute timer, have a go, and I'll see you shortly. Okay, welcome back. So hopefully there you've spent 15 minutes writing a narrative account analysing the ways in which the cattle industry grew in the years 1865 to 1874. Okay, so first and foremost, I just realised I've not mentioned it out about the motif. So again, remember, your answer ideally will have a sentence, 1-sentence summary, then it'll have paragraph 1, the beginning, paragraph 2, the middle, paragraph 3, the end, and then a 1-sentence summary. And remember, our motif, or the motif that I'm writing, is about how the cattle industry just grew massively over time, got more profitable and more profitable. Alright, so again, what I'm doing here is I'm going to try and link all of them through. So in that summary, I'm introducing the motif. Okay, and I'm bouncing it all the way through. I'm constantly referring back to it. And what that does is that creates the link throughout my answer. So I'm going to read out my answer as I'm conscious of my ugly handwriting. Let's have a look. Between the years 1865 and 1874, the cattle industry exponentially grew, leading to extremely wealthy individuals known as cattle barons, and conflict between barons and homesteaders as the industry developed. So you'll see here, exponentially grew, extremely wealthy, cattle barons, conflict. So loads of possible themes there that I've linked in, and I'm going to bring in events that almost link to these themes. Right, so firstly, the cattle industry began to significantly develop when Charles Goodnight and Oliver Loving, so AO1 for their names, created the Goodnight-Loving Trail in 1866, AO1+. This was when they drove cattle from Texas to the west and sold cattle to indigenous peoples for $12,000 in 1866. Right, AO1+, indigenous peoples, AO1, which was 4 times what they made in Texas. Again, loads of AO1 there. So just plenty of knowledge. This developed the cattle industry as cattlemen wanted to copy their success and inspired men like Joseph McCoy. There's my motif. They're wanting to copy. This developed the cattle industry. They're wanting to copy. That is a great phrase, this developed. In 1867, McCoy set up the first cow town in the West called Abilene. Right, AO1. This was where cattlemen could drive their cattle to Abilene and sell their cattle onto the Transcontinental Railroad rather than drive them thousands of miles. Again, there's plenty of AO1 here. This developed, again I'm using the language, this developed the cattle industry as McCoy created the Chisholm Trail, leading to 3 million cattle being driven and sold through Abilene, Again, there's my motif. I've used this developed. Again, I'm saying about how the industry constantly develops and people are getting richer and richer and richer. This led to, now a great phrase this led to John Iliffe developing open range ranching in 1870. So here's AO1. Open range ranching removed the need for a long drive and created a ranch of 16,000 acres, AO1 plus, to allow his cattle to roam freely on the Great Plains. Again, AO1. This led to Iliffe becoming Denver's first millionaire, owning 26,000 AO1 plus cattle to sell to railroaders and starving Sioux on the reservations, AO1 again. As a result, cattlemen copied Iliffe, which created extremely wealthy cattle barons who could influence politics. So again, there's my motif, because I'm referring to extremely wealthy cattle barons and the fact that it could influence politics. All of which, where I've mentioned in this first motif here, about conflict, extremely wealthy, exponentially grew. Let's have a look at the next, at the remainder of this paragraph. This led to, so this is actually paragraph 3. Paragraph 3. This is the end of the story. And I've started my answer with this led to, again creating links between the middle of the story and the end of the story. This led to conflict between the cattle ranchers and the homesteaders with the invention of barbed wire in 1874, AO1, and the growing greed of cattle barons meant that long drives were being taken through homesteads, or the best land was being taken up using the Homestead Act by the barons to choke the homesteaders of the best land and the best resources. So again, loads of knowledge here. As a result, barbed wire created conflict as it stopped drives crossing over the homesteads and began to close off the open range. This led to conflicts such as cattle rustling in the Johnson County War. So again, there's my motif there, linking back to it. And overall, the period between 1865 and 1874 shows a significant development of the cattle industry, with the Goodnight Loving Trail and Abilene leading to open range ranching, culminating in conflict thanks to barbed wire between homesteaders and cattle barons. And you can see there, I've linked this entire thing is all the way back to my motif, my theme through the story about how they're getting richer and richer and richer, and because of all of that wealth, it creates power, and that power creates conflict, and barbed wire is an example of that conflict. So if I go straight back to my mark scheme here, is have I got one event per paragraph? No. Have I got 2 events per paragraph that is precise? Absolutely. Have I got clear links between each one? Yeah, absolutely. So that means that this answer here is I've got 2 events per paragraph. I've got a clear links between them. That puts me at probably 8 out of 8 for this type of answer. Okay, it's a tricky question, but we'll get there in the end. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.